Well, there is a lot of news, so we better move on.
And we've all seen at least some of it. An Oval Office blowout leaves the U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal in limbo. The official signing getting scrapped after President Trump, Vice President Vance, and President Zelenskyy got into a heated exchange over the Russia-Ukraine war.
Trump asked Zelenskyy to leave the White House after the chaotic meeting and told him to come back when he is ready for peace.
Oh, I love it. Here's the tense conversation that has many Republicans wondering if U.S.-Ukraine relations can ever be repaired. Watch.
We signed ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
a lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire
today.
meeting, have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think?
What's this negotiation?
This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Yeah, he's right about that.
Forever the television producer.
It makes me think that Zelensky's entitlement comes from a place of coming to see President Biden and Vice President Harris and Secretary of State Blinken and explaining to them how democracy works. And they must have just said, oh, thank you so much for the pep talk. How much do you need?
Yeah, here it is.
But what
Hand out the money.
What a colossal misread, both of the mood of the country, but also just in that room. You know, you walk in that room. What did he think that they were going to talk about? What did he think was going to happen as a result of this? Obviously, you know, Putin's a bad man. Everybody agrees that Putin shouldn't have invaded. Those are the terms of the situation. But then to walk in and then you're going to just start crying about it and attacking your benefactors over that, that's no way to proceed.
Yeah. It's so wrong. You know, I wonder who gave him the advice. I mean, you're right. It could be just he's used to operating this way and just steamrolling over his benefactors, as you call it. Or maybe he had some calls before, like, you get tough, you know, from Victoria Nuland or somebody else or Susan Rice. You go in there and you tell him, and he goes in there and he does it, and it just doesn't work out. And then you talk about, you know, the whole setup. Look, I listened closely. J.D. Vance called him Mr. President. He called JD instead of Mr. Vice President. He comes in dressed, you know, in a costume instead of a suit. So I think there's a lot of things that are happening here, and this guy is very used to a certain way of operating, but there's a new sheriff in town.
And when Zelensky's calling the vice president JD, he was also shaming him for not visiting Ukraine. The guy who has visited Ukraine more than anybody, Lindsey Graham, marched right out to the Fox position, where I normally am, on the lawn and said, Zelensky's got to go. So I don't think that these visits, these PR visits to Ukraine are getting a good return for the Zelensky team right now. I don't think that the Ukraine visit is the reason that Vance has a different opinion.
I don't know,
than
Peter.
Zelensky.
The propaganda tours of Ukraine have actually given him a lot of money. They've worked for a long time. Maybe it's the end of the line. And Lindsey Graham, I mean, he kind of goes with the wind. I mean, it's not exactly like he's an honest broker here.
Well, whoever was advising him failed.
No question.
Getting what he wanted. So after all of that, President Zelenskyy refusing to apologize to President Trump. Let's go to Madeline Rivera in Washington with Fallout.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Yeah, this minerals deal was seen by President Trump as compensation for the aid the U.S. has given Ukraine. There was no security guarantee in that agreement. It was expected to come in a bigger negotiation. Now there's uncertainty over whether all of that can happen at all. President Trump saying on Truth Social, I have determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. After being told to leave the White House grounds, Zelenskyy spoke with our Brett Baer, where he said he believes his relationship with the president, President Trump, can be repaired.
I'm not hearing from you, Mr. President, a thought that you owe the president an apology.
No, I respect the president and I respect American people. And if, I don't know, if I think that we have to be very open and very honest. And I'm not sure that we did something bad.
This morning, the New York Post is reporting Zelensky's chief of staff had insisted on having that Oval Office meeting. The push reportedly came as President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, General Keith Kellogg, was putting the final touches on that minerals deal. A U.S. official tells the New York Post Kellogg and Zelenskyy had agreed to a deal with one item still to be finalized. As negotiations wrapped up, Zelensky's chief of staff, Andrew Yarmak, pushed for the Ukrainian president to join Trump at the White House to sign the agreement. Kellogg advised against it, knowing that the relationship between the presidents needed to be strengthened before meeting in person. And now the world obviously knows how that meeting played out. There are questions now over Ukraine's future as well, with Zelenskyy admitting they don't have enough weapons to push Russia out. Charlie, Rachel, and Peter.
Thank you, Maddie.
You got it.
All right, well, we talked a little bit about the Lindsey Graham sound, so let's just play that. This is what Lindsey Graham said. I guess this is after Zelenskyy was kicked out of the White House, no lunch, and then Lindsey Graham comes out and throws him under the bus more. So watch this.
I talked to Zelenskyy this morning. Don't take the bait. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelenskyy again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with.
Do you think President Zelenskyy needs to resign to resume these peace talks?
He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
It's quite a bite.
And of course, the problem there is that if you are going to change Zelenskyy, they haven't had elections. So there's a problem with that. And so I don't think that we're going to wait around for that to happen. So somebody's going to have a change of attitude and figure out, do they really want to make this thing work?
And everybody, I know that all these other European leaders were tweeting, we support you, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Yeah. We've got your back. I don't know what they're going to do. They're not going to start paying hundreds of billions of dollars for weapons, which would just prolong this war. Somebody, though, who knew instantly that this was going horribly was the Ukrainian ambassador. She was there in the Oval Office as part of the Zelenskyy side, and she had her head in her hands. You never see this. I go to these Oval Office things all the time, even if they get a little dry and people might need to collect themselves. You never, ever see that. She knew.
Yeah, I think everyone knew, though. I mean, she just didn't have a poker face about it. I mean, everybody, we knew watching this. We're like, the whole thing's falling apart. Here's what I think, you guys. I think that Zelenskyy kind of embodies the whole ungrateful European attitude. in general. The sense of entitlement, the sense that America's always going to be there to hand out money and protect them and fix things. And now they're sort of waking up like, this guy really means it. And this thing was, and also the fact that we're seeing it all play out in, we've never seen these kind of negotiations play out on TV like this. It's remarkable.
No, and I went to Poland twice with Biden after the war broke out and then for the year anniversary. And there is this sense, yes, Europe is united with Ukraine, but this war is over without the United States. There's a Russian flag flying over Zelensky's house right now, without the United States, rather, I should say, and all of their help. So all of these tweets are meaningless unless these European guys are going to say, okay, well, the U.S. is out, so here's all these advanced weapons. Luxembourg doesn't have the weapons to give them.
I think we got to get back to the central point. I think the most important point that Donald Trump made in this whole thing. He said, you are gambling with World War III.
Yep.
This was about peace, ultimately. There's a lot of drama, and we can break down everybody's feelings. But in the end, I think what's remarkable is that we have a president who's willing to do anything to bring about world peace. Man, if he doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize after this, it means nothing.
And he was giving Zelensky an off-ramp.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't take it, the war continues.
Yep. And meanwhile, in Washington, the Trump administration rolled on with DOGE, federal workers told once again to justify their work, as Elon Musk joined Joe Rogan for a wide-ranging interview, saying DOGE is a threat to bureaucracy, not democracy. The Office of Personnel Management email came 4 hours after the end of business day and asked employees to reply with approximately 5 bullets describing what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Going forward, the message said, please complete the above task each week by Mondays at 11:59 p.m.
The best one of those emails that I saw so far was from the transportation secretary. That was like the first one. Here's my 5 things. So he's not getting fired.
He's not getting fired. He's not getting doged. No, but listen, Elon Musk also went on with Joe Rogan to talk about this, bureaucracy, this stubborn, stuck-in-the-mud bureaucracy, and saying, you can decide, America, if you want a bureaucracy running your country or if you actually want a democracy run by the people. Listen.
Should be celebrating that we've found a way to cut out fraud and waste.
Yeah.
If you pay taxes and you don't like that you have to pay so much in taxes, and then you find out that there's significant fraud and waste that's been exposed, you should be celebrating.
You probably saw, let's say, Trump as a threat to our democracy, which is ironic since he was elected with the majority of the, popular vote. They started saying I was a threat to democracy. But if you just replace threat to democracy with threat to bureaucracy, it makes total sense. Normally the bureaucracy eats revolutions for breakfast. This is the first time that they're not, that the revolution might actually succeed, that we could restore power to the people instead of power to the bureaucracy.
Like you said a minute ago, Rachel, all this is unfolding right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And there's something it's a little, maybe a little chaotic, maybe a little uncomfortable for some people, but it's a very healthy thing.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, he said also in that interview, he said, this is the greatest revolution since the American Revolution, since 1776. And he talked about this team that Donald Trump has enacted. And again, it's so interesting. He said, bureaucracies eat revolutions. This time, they just might not make it.
I just can't believe that Elon Musk went to Austin, Texas, and missed the whole Zelensky thing at the Oval Office. It's like the one day that he's not there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Well, you also got on a flight to come here. You missed it. You might have been in there.
And I'm getting text messages. Do you see this Oval Office thing?
Do you regret getting on the plane to come here and not having been in that historic moment? You can be honest with us.
Well, of course, if you had been Poole, you would have been stuck in the press office and wouldn't have.
There really are no, the pool is a new evolving thing.
Yes.
Who goes in, who doesn't go in. But no, I'd rather be here to talk about it. Yeah. We can talk about it for 8 hours. If I was there, I'd talk about it for 15 seconds.
We'll be talking about this for a year.
Yeah, I think so too. This is going down in the history books.